The True Hebrews, The Journey from Israel to Negroland and Timbuktu. The narrative of the Hebrews, particularly those who traveled from ancient Israel to various regions across Africa, is a complex tapestry woven with history, culture, and identity. This historical lesson delves into the migration of these Hebrews, exploring their journey to Negroland and Timbuktu, the socio-political dynamics that led to their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, and the subsequent impact on communities in the Americas and the Caribbean. By examining these historical interactions, we gain insight into a lesser-known aspect of the transatlantic slave trade and the enduring legacy of the Hebrew people. Historical context of the Hebrews. The ancient Hebrews, or Israelites, trace their origins to the biblical narratives that describe their journey from Egypt to the Promised Land. Historical evidence suggests that after the Babylonian exile and subsequent diasporas, some Hebrew communities found themselves dispersed across the African continent. Over centuries, these groups assimilated into various cultures, maintaining a distinct identity while also adopting elements from surrounding societies. This blending of cultures would play a pivotal role in their eventual migration to West Africa, particularly into regions known as Negroland, which was characterized by diverse ethnic groups and flourishing trade networks. The journey to Negroland and Timbuktu and other regions of Africa. Negroland, a term used historically to describe regions in West Africa, included areas that are now part of modern-day Nigeria, Mali, and Senegal. Timbuktu, a renowned city in Mali, became a significant center of trade, culture, and learning during the medieval period. As Hebrew communities migrated towards these regions, they brought with them their cultural practices, religious beliefs, and knowledge systems. The journey was not merely a physical relocation, it represented a search for stability and a quest for identity amidst the shifting sands of political and social landscapes in Africa. In Timbuktu, the Hebrews were part of a rich tapestry of cultures that included traders, scholars, and artisans. The city served as a hub for the trans-Saharan trade routes, facilitating exchanges of goods, ideas, and cultural practices. The Hebrew presence in Timbuktu contributed to the vibrant intellectual atmosphere, as they engaged in trade and scholarship alongside other ethnic groups. Involvement in the slave trade. As the transatlantic slave trade gained momentum in the 16th and 17th centuries, the dynamics of power shifted in West Africa. Various African kingdoms and empires became involved in the slave trade, trading captives, often from rival tribes or communities, for goods such as firearms, textiles, and rum. The Hebrews, who had established themselves in Negroland and Timbuktu, were unfortunately not immune to these developments. Historical accounts suggest that Hebrew individuals and families were captured during conflicts and raids and subsequently sold into slavery. The complex socio-political landscape of the time meant that alliances and rivalries often dictated the fate of communities. This blending of cultures would play a pivotal role trading captives, often from rival tribes or communities, for goods such as firearms, textiles, and rum. The Hebrews, who had established themselves in Negroland and Timbuktu, were unfortunately not immune to these developments. Historical accounts suggest that Hebrew individuals and families were captured during conflicts and raids and subsequently sold into slavery. The complex socio-political landscape of the time meant that alliances and rivalries often dictated the fate of communities. As a result, some Hebrews found themselves in the hands of African traders, who, driven by economic incentives, sold them to European slave traders. The Middle Passage and the Americas. Once sold, the enslaved Hebrews were subjected to the harrowing Middle Passage, the brutal sea journey from Africa to the Americas and Caribbean islands. The conditions aboard slave ships were horrific. Individuals were shackled and crammed into dark, unsanitary spaces, where disease and despair prevailed. The journey would claim countless lives, but for those who survived, it marked the beginning of an arduous existence in bondage. Upon arrival in the Americas and the Caribbean, Hebrew individuals were distributed among plantations and households, where they were forced to labor under grueling conditions. Despite their suffering, remnants of Hebrew culture and identity persisted. Some enslaved individuals retained elements of their religious practices, while others contributed to the broader African cultural landscape, influencing music, language, and spirituality in the New World. Legacy and recognition. The legacy of the Hebrews who traveled from Israel to Africa, and into the transatlantic slave trade is often overlooked in mainstream narratives. Their experiences highlight the interconnectedness of cultures and communities across continents, revealing a complex history of resilience in the face of adversity. In contemporary discussions about identity and heritage, there is a growing movement to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of these communities. In the Americas and the Caribbean, descendants of these Hebrews, alongside other African diasporic groups, continue to explore their roots, reclaiming narratives that have long been marginalized. Cultural festivals, academic research, and community initiatives are helping to illuminate the history of the Hebrews in the context of the broader African experience, fostering a sense of pride and identity among descendants. In conclusion, the journey of the true Hebrews from Israel to Negroland and Timbuktu, followed by their tragic involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities of history. This narrative underscores the resilience of a people who, despite facing unimaginable hardships, have managed to preserve elements of their identity and culture across generations. By recognizing and honoring their story, we contribute to a more nuanced understanding of history, one that acknowledges the interconnectedness of human experiences and the enduring legacies that shape our world today. Thank you for listening, and remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Therefore, you would not miss out on new and exciting content. And remember whose truth? No other than Dr. Ruth.